Let's get it started in here. Who sings that song? Yep. Who sings it?
Original or sample?
Original.
That's the Black Eyed Peas, right?
Black Eyed Peas. Yeah. It's one of my favorite songs when I speak and travel. I use that song to get started, to get the meeting started. So I should play it on here, but I
Yes,
am
you
not
should,
going
Carrie.
to.
We need
It
music.
makes me happy. I love it.
Yeah, it's a good song. Okay, well, um, I hope you guys are all having a good week. You've been shoveled out of snow. Those of you who live in the Salt Lake area, Ogden area in Utah, Vernal got missed. We um, didn't get missed all winter, but we did get missed on this storm. So thank heavens. So let's start off with our culture piece. And Shantae, can I pick on you today to read that for us? I'll pull it up.
Sure.
There you go. Can you see it?
I can.
Okay.
Innovate. Innovation is the creation, development, and implementation of a new product, process, or service with the aim of improving efficiency, effectiveness, or competitive advantage. There are 4 types: disruptive, incremental, sustaining, and radical.
Right. Very good. Thank you. So, and those are good things to follow up on. You can read up on what those 4 different types are. Disruptive is kind of what we strive to do, is disrupt the industry. The next slide that I have in that program with this culture piece is disrupt labor services, and that's kind of our goal. So yeah, having that innovation and being able to be more efficient, more effective, new ideas. That's what we're always striving for, and we like to have people's input and ideas. So thank you for sharing that. So you guys, how did the Q12 stuff go this past week? Who was able to meet with at least 2 people in their team? And or if you don't have a team, who was able to meet with their leader and talk about the Q12? Anybody? Everybody? Did anybody do it? Okay. Ashley, Labram, how did that go for you?
It went well. It was nice to have a discussion, and it helped me catch a couple of things that I thought we were on the same page and we weren't. And so it was really nice to have that feedback. And then we developed a plan on how to get on the same page.
Did you go through each of the 12? Did you go through just the first part of the 12? What did that format look like for you?
So I was already using the Q12 in my one-on-ones with the team, but we went back to the first 4 and went over those ones in particular this week.
Okay, good. That's good. Bree, how about you? You raised your hand.
Well, we've been using the Q12 for a while, but we put out a survey to our team before our meeting the last meeting, and it was like the yes, no, and I was like, crap. So then I went back with one of my employees and did the first 6 because she wanted to talk through them. And so I think it was a good exercise. It was a lot better, and I felt like I got a lot more than the yes, no. So it was good.
So kind of using all those descriptive pieces.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. And when you get into the big thick book that all of you have, there's a whole section there on Q12, and each one of those is broken out. It's almost a page long on each one, and it'll give you more description. So that's really good as well. So good. I think that's great. Ashley Hosang, how did you get involved in the Q12?
Yes, I had the opportunity to do it yesterday with Juan Rivera. He's our trades recruiter. And I was pretty surprised how everything was yes. I was laughing. I was like, tell me the truth. It's not only because I'm asking you, you need to tell me the truth. And he was being sincere, but I think that one of the things that influenced this to be positive is because I have had this in the past with Belinda. So I know, the lines I need to go with my team.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
it was pretty good. And in the second one, it was cool how after I asked him that if he had the materials and equipment that he needs to work, right? And he looked at me and he's like, well, now that we have the new office, I do. So that's
Yeah.
something positive and good.
Yeah, good. Good. Any other experiences anybody had with their team or with their leader, their manager? And we will be going through this again on truth number 3, talking about Q12, and Joe's going to help with that. If he doesn't remember, I'm reminding him now, but it's still a week or two away. But we'll kind of dig into the Q12 a little bit more. How often should we do Q12?
At least
Every time we.
Say that again.
I'd say at least monthly.
Okay. Any other thoughts?
Quarterly.
Quarterly? Okay. Yeah. I think
We
that's,
can do pieces of it every time we have one-on-ones.
yeah. I think all those are great answers. I think as needed, I think as what we don't want to do is like stretch it out to annually, or biannual. I think that's way too little. And I don't think we, again, when you think about the questions and when you answered the questions last week, think about that. How powerful is it? And why do we not want to have that type of discussion on a regular basis? Because man, it opens up some great things for us, great opportunities, great discussions. Really helps when we start thinking about talent and strengths and how to use them, direction that we can be guiding people, so I think be mindful of using these questions. We don't want to use them so much that they go, okay, just answer yes, no, whatever. But that there's some really good discussion behind it, and it leads us to the right thing, the right coaching. Remember, we're coaches. We're not bosses. We're coaches, and this gives us that opportunity to coach. Any
Haley,
other?
do you mind if I?
Yeah. No, I was just going to say.
You were about to
That's
ask if
good,
anyone
Joe.
had anything.
Perfect.
I do.
Good.
Pick me. I wanted to just add something kind of small, and it was a little bit off of what Ashley Labrum had just mentioned, which is if you don't get 5s on every single option, your job and goal as a manager should be to work towards getting 5s. Now, are you ever going to get 5s? I actually talked with John just yesterday, and he's like, I don't give any meeting a 10 out of 10 because there's always room for improvement. And so you may have the skeptics on your team that are never going to give 5s, but that doesn't necessarily mean you're not a 5 in their mind, if that kind of makes any sense. And so if there's things that are challenges or issues, you have an opportunity to put a plan in place with them, kind of like what Ashley was talking about, on what can we do to improve this. These are covering a large section of it. Now, I don't know if we're ever going to perfectly improve. I have a best friend at work, but that we have a culture where your teammates care about you. Those are things that are very valuable, and where you're building and generating opportunities to create those friendships and relationships through working through hard things together. And what I'm really just trying to get after is that however much you need to, that was, I think, the Bree answer, which is appropriately.
Yeah.
Maybe not quite appropriately, but that's the point is when you do these with your team, you're not going to get 5s on every single thing. And then there's an opportunity for you to have discussion and an opportunity to re-review these things, fairly often. If it was me, I would say, and Carrie didn't say this, but my personal preference is to do deep reviews and go through the whole Q12, at least twice a year, at the very least. I think that Shane's answer on once a month is probably, if you're doing one-on-ones every other week, that's it might be a lot to do every other week. If you're doing one-on-ones weekly, it's 1 out of 4, right? So what feels right? You and your manager need to kind of make those decisions on that. But I don't know if that's any help to all of this, but what is appropriate, I think, is up to all of you guys. But it's a tool that will help you be more aligned And I can't wait also to kind of review the PAT. And Bree and I had an amazing experience with the PAT. And we found out it's like what my expectations and hers were. And this was, before, I searched and she took over search. But we have a good story when we get to that, because that's another tool to help us to become more aligned together through doing those reviews.
Yeah, really good. Thank you. And I think that, that's really good. When you talked about, John said he doesn't ever give a 10. And so I think it's good to ask those questions or understand who different people or personalities are. I'm kind of the same way, because I always feel like there is room, for improvement. And so, but just knowing that, right? So now that you know that, it's not that you're striving for getting that higher level, and but we always know that there's room for improvement. So just, I think you'll get different answers from different people, but knowing the personality, and this is our job, right, as coaches and mentors, is to understand your people, understand their personalities, and then you can adjust accordingly to how we interact and engage with each other. So everybody's different. Look, I've always been kind of a pushback person when it comes to like school. Okay, the school system. The school system says, here's our program, everybody should learn the same way, and this is how we teach. But people don't learn the same way. And I think there's great teachers who, go beyond what the system says and says, here, let me find the ways to help each of my students. But the system itself is not designed to help each person the way that they learn. Some of you are very visual. Some of you are very auditorial learning. I mean, there's many ways that people learn, and I think that you should discover that with your team. What's the best thing that you can help them, and the best way to teach and to learn? So that makes sense. Good. Any other comments before we jump off? Now, again, on truth number 3, because we're still on truth number 2, right? We haven't left truth number 2, just so you know. And I'll go through that in a minute. But truth number 3 is more of the Q12, and we'll get into that, dive into that a little bit deeper, I think, with that. So, okay. All right. If there's nothing else on
Hey,
Q,
Gary, I have
yeah,
something
Shane.
I think is, I
Yeah,
love the
Shane.
fact that you brought up learning styles. I think that's super cool. There's a few different learning styles, but I have a kind of an assessment that I can send out to everyone that you can send to your teams to help understand what their learning styles are.
Great.
And then and help them better understand what their learning styles are as well too. So watch for that. I'll send that out today so you guys can share that out, and it'll give you some tips and tricks on how best to work with teams.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, that is awesome.
It's always good to know, because if you are an analytical person and you think that everything should revolve around that, then you're going to miss the point with some of the people who are not your analytical people. If you're a highly expressive individual and you're all just cheerleader and pumped up, and again, you miss the boat with others. And expressives and analyticals don't really fit well together. And so you have to be able to understand each other so that you can work together in a common cause, which is what we have in these documents, is a common cause and purpose, right? So very good. All right. I hope that you read this 4th document. We're on the 4th document. Okay. We'll probably go through most of it today, or a large part, and then next week we'll finish up and we'll be off of the documents and into truth number 3. And then in a few weeks we'll be on truth number 4 for Belinda. So it'll be a few weeks. But this one, so as we think about this document, it's called Employer of Choice. So what is an employer of choice to you guys? What does that mean to you? when you hear the word employer of choice?
One word for me is partner.
Partner? Okay. Partner. Joe?
Are we supposed to do just one word?
No. No. I just said, what does it mean? So,
Shane got me distracted by the one word thing. It's about choice, right? I always go back to the Matrix movie, and the problem is choice, right? But the idea here is what is it that we choose? And if we're an employer of choice, it means we have plethora of choices, but this is the one that we choose. And why do we choose? That means it's elevated. And what is it elevated from? It's elevated from all of the other choices. And so what makes an employer of choice? It means that we do things like what Sheen said, we partner. And our company treats us like individuals, like contributors, like individuals that are in full partnership with you. So it's like, what are your ideas? And you're given latitude. I used to say this, that people really want three things, right? They want good compensation. They want a company that cares about them, that listens to them and respects them. That means keeping them informed when things are going on. That means making sure that these individuals that are partners with us, that are doing the work to help the business grow, we're in full partnership. But really comes to the last piece. And that last piece is a manager that cares about me and that sees me and wants to see me grow. And I think that those are the things that you can't be a good employer choice if you have very poor compensation. You can't be an employer choice if you have an organization that doesn't have mission, culture, purpose dialed in, and doesn't have to be perfect, but has to be a type of culture that is driving forward. And then last, it all again comes back down to the people in this room, that who makes number two a reality for the people that work for the organization. It is the manager. And those are the three things that I think that are a massive first step when it comes to what becomes an employer choice.
Good, very good. Any other thoughts about?
If I could add to it.
Yeah, please.
Now more than ever, it's become more about how people feel at work. Whereas before it was more about advancement and compensation and things like that. But it's much more about how people feel at work. I'd say an employer of choice is a gravity center. People gravitate to them because of how people feel at those jobs. And then they start talking to others. Hey, come and work here, and people want to work there. Out in the community, they are known for this thing that they have that causes people to feel amazing at their job. And what is that exactly? That is a question that is ever so growing, and we are still seeking to fully understand. But it's a gravity center, and it is a lot more about how people feel at work than ever before.
And thank you, Kyle. That's good. We started this employer of choice thing. It's been a few years since we started. I actually have it printed on my business card and have for a number of years, that we are an employer of choice working with employers of choice. And that gets people's attention. So why do we want to be an employer of choice? What does that mean to people? And Kyle just kind of answered some of that. Is it a way to attract people? If you're an employer of choice, will you attract people to your company, do you think? Yeah. And we want to attract the best, right? We want to attract, high performers, elite performers, as we've learned in these documents. I don't know how, when you guys first heard the term employer of choice, or we are an employer of choice working with employers of choice, but, when you first heard that, did that resonate with you? Did that mean anything to you, or did it mean nothing to you? What were your thoughts?
Well, for me, Carrie, it resonated with me when I heard it because as a salesperson, when we're out in the field and we're talking to different clients, it always catches my attention when I hear that their attrition is low and their tenure is high. It immediately makes me want to say, why? Why? How do they retain their employees? And I immediately know that that's someone that I want to focus my efforts on, because that's the kind of partnership and client that I want to bring on. So I think it's important for us to have that reputation in the community as well, not just with clients, but employees and applicants and anyone that sees our name. They immediately identify us with longevity and tenure and just a good company culture.
Yeah. And do you think there's a lot of companies out there that are employers of choice, or do you think there's a lot of companies that may want to be, or, just not there yet? What are your thoughts?
I can name one that's not. Maybe two.
Okay.
Maybe two that's not.
Yeah.
No,
So-
it's true, right? This is what companies strive to be, right? And it's one thing to say it, and it's another thing to live it.
Yeah.
And that's really what it comes down to. And I can tell you, look, when I first started, it was culture, 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 culture. Before I even started, it was culture, right? This is what we're about. This is what it is. And I've worked for a few organizations, and that's always the same statement: is we love our culture. Our culture is the best. And when people ask to define culture, what a hard question to answer, right? When you interview somebody and they're like, "What's your culture?" It's like, really? Like, how do I even explain that? And to me, culture is the way that you feel when you talk about your organization, the way you feel about that organization, how excited you get when you say, smart resources, smart trades, any one of our divisions. That to me is culture. And if you have that excitement, and if our team has that excitement, I think that's huge. And there's so many organizations that try so hard to have this great culture. And there's so many organizations that have an amazing culture, and then another organization comes in and acquires them and just murders that culture, right? And you never really realize how good you have it until you lose it. So
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
it. That's all I have.
Good. Thank you. Maddie?
I think as far as our clients go, we have a lot of clients that are really, really close to being an employer of choice. But if they were an employer of choice already, they wouldn't necessarily need our help in recruiting. And I think that's what's so fun, is seeing the clients that want to become the employer of choice and just need a few little tweaks to get there. And I just like being part of that process.
Yeah. Yeah. And there are companies that I've dealt with. Very few are, I would classify as employers of choice. There's a lot that want to be and want to be better. Obviously, we all do. I've seen a few that have changed. I was working with Sephora. Some of you know who Sephora is. When I first started supplying people for that company, they were definitely not an employer of choice. They were doing all that they could to drive people away, maybe unconsciously, but they did a good job of it. And then I had a friend that I placed there, or got got him in and he was the HR director for Sephora. And I went in and talked with him a few years later after I'd left the company I was with, and complete change, you guys. So they struggled to get people. They were looking at, always trying to get 300 to 400 people. It was really kind of a tough deal. Low pay, not treated real well. They completely changed that. The pay went up, the culture changed, and he told me that it went from us needing all these people to us having a waiting list of people wanting to work there. So that was a huge shift, and I loved seeing that. But there are companies that really, really strive to make that happen, and I think that's a fantastic thing. And it's our job to help when we can, because don't we want to work, as Shantae said, we want to work with employers of choice. That's our goal. So let me pull up the document again. I hope that you've all taken a chance to read it. and kind of understand it. Nope, that's not the right one. Sorry. Let me. Hang on here. Sorry, guys.
Jerry, I can share it. I have it up on my screen. Would
Oh, do
like
you?
me to?
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
I had it queued up here, but apparently I grabbed the wrong one or something.
You know what? I'm on my phone. Just join on my.
Okay. I've got it here.
Oh, okay.
Here we go. Haha. Okay. So what I'm going to do, because we've talked so much about culture and that sort of thing, I'm not going to really cover these first pieces because we've really covered them. We've covered them heavily in our other documents. But as we look at this, when we read this very first sentence, what is our culture? What are our mechanisms or traditions? And what kind of employer of choice are we striving to be? What does member development look like? So this first part, I'm not going to go through that because again, we've already been through it, but I want to go through these. I know Joe spent a lot of time putting these mechanisms and stuff together, and they're great. So let's take a look. And because Joe, that you kind of worked on this, can you start off and just share this first one, mechanism number one, transparency?
Yeah, so when I was creating this document, it was saying a mechanism is the thing we do to make that thing happen. And so I really tried to live in that idea that it's mechanical, right? Transparency. How do we deliver our value of transparency to our company? And if you have extra ideas on how we can deliver more transparency, let's talk about adding that in here. But mechanism number one is transparency. So what are our things? The first one, a company all hands meeting. That is the first Friday after the 15th of each month. Why after the 15th? Well, this is really to make sure that Scott has a chance to wrap up financials. And because if we just do the third one can sometimes be, much sooner than that. And so this is a great way to make sure that we have the financials so we can review the financial standing. And that's part of B. All financial and strategic information is shared with everyone via the monthly meeting and presentations. Now it's a lot to condense into 30 minutes. And so we have to try to be on point. And that's why we have that agenda behind there. Okay. C, culture, strategy, company performance, KPIs, survey results, department performance. These should be shared with all, again, via company meetings, team meetings, one-to-ones. And there's something called you cascade meaning, not goals. So don't set goals for people. You cascade what things mean. And so you help people understand so it makes them more effective in their job because they have more context. We likely do not share all plans, strategies, etc., as they're being evolved or being created, because it's not a plan. We don't want to distract you with all the ideas in our heads. We want to make sure that it's a little bit more tangible and thought out before it's just thrown over the wall and everyone's like, oh, all these different things, look at all this different direction. No, it needs to be and so it's like, while we live in transparency, we also want to make sure that we're not, sharing unfiltered thoughts and really coming forward with ideas, strategies, and plans versus just as they're being evolved or created. And E, individual employee performance, reprimands, people's pay, etc. Those should not be shared with others as that's not transparency. That is actually an individual that you're doing things publicly. You shouldn't be doing that type of stuff publicly, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But anyway, Kyle had a question, and that
Yep,
was
Kyle?
mechanism number 1.
Yeah, there's one I think we could add on to this. I'm just going to make a suggestion. We can all think about it. I think part of transparency is whenever there's changes in the organization structure, promotions, successions, or just changes in positions, anything that affects how we operate, with whom we operate, etc. It's very important to share the vision of those changes with those affected, which is usually everybody.
Yeah.
And that way, those changes occur much smoother, and there's no surprises in those types of things. I just think that's a big one that should be under the transparency category.
Yeah, good point. So, yeah, very good. How many of you, by the raise of your hand, have thought that the company, when we have our company meetings and other things, that we've been pretty transparent with everybody? We share our numbers. I've had people, when I've hired them and they've gotten back with me and said, I can't believe you guys share so much information with everybody. Like you tell us everything, which I think is really, really good. So, Joe, you had a question or comment?
Nope, you said raise your hands. I just tried to do it
Oh.
digitally versus physically. So.
Okay. All right. Good. Thank you. Good. Okay. Let's go to the next section. I'll just have everybody kind of help participate on this since it's got longer paragraphs in it. So mechanism number 2 is our culture of learning together. So again, you guys, as you look at these, remember, you can go to these documents and say, okay, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. So we do have a company meeting and we do share financials and all kinds of strategic information, and we're very transparent. We do have this culture and strategy and so on. Number 2 is all about learning, and this is what we need to be doing. Let's start off, and so mechanism number 2, culture of learning. Arturo, could you read A for us?
Yes. Book
Thank you.
reviews by team. Every employee needs to be in a book review group. No pace requirements, but every team member will focus on growing.
Everybody should be reading a book, So how many of you are reading more than one book? So that's good. Reading, if you've ever heard that, statement, leaders are readers, right? So we're reading and we're learning, we're developing. Because we read books, we've got this program. I mean, it's all been because we have been learning, and it's been fantastic. So yeah, it's good. Let's see, Ashley Labram, will you do letter B, excuse me?
Yeah. Leadership training. Each person currently leading or desiring to lead a team or teams must go through the leadership training. The first step is first break all the rules and 9 lies at work, mandatory reading and training program. We also have Flourish First and Griffin Hill platforms. We expect them to hold effective one-to-one check-ins weekly, team meetings, ongoing frequency performance reviews, and PAT alignments, following hiring procedures, etc.
Okay, so Ashley, what did you just learn from just that paragraph, that letter?
That leadership training, like training itself, is super important to developing leaders and to the culture of the team, of the company itself.
And how many things were in that paragraph that we should be doing? You don't have to give us an exact number, sorry. There's a lot though, right?
Yeah.
So there's a lot, and it tells you, it spells it out. Does it say the leadership training and reading these books is an elective? No. We must read those things. And when we say must and it's mandatory, I hate, it's not about forcing people, but we know when you read these things, you're going to go, oh my gosh, this is fantastic. I'm going to be a better leader and manager because of it. And we know that will happen. So we do want to make sure that people are having an opportunity for training, and that we give them the material and the resources. We're supposed to have effective one-on-ones, check-ins weekly, team meetings, ongoing frequent performance reviews, PAT alignments, and then follow hiring procedures, etc. There's a lot there. It's a lot there. Very good. Thank you. Ashley Hosang, will you read C?
Of course. Smart University. The objective here is to help us each become self-directed, lifelong learners. One of the greatest things we can do is feed our mind with good material that gets us curious and asking questions and builds momentum from our current situation to something better or something great. Smart University is designed to meet those wishes and hopes, to provide the learning material and opportunities for each of us to be better and improve. Internal, Griffin Hill, flourish first.
Great, thank you. Yes, Belinda?
I raised my hand. I don't know.
I didn't say anything. It was just
Okay.
from when you asked if we were transparent or not.
Okay,
sorry.
okay, very good, thank you.
I
Joe?
did raise my hand on that one though.
Yeah, go ahead, please.
So the objective here is to become self-directed lifelong learners and ask, questions. Here's the point is, we are an organization that if we find ways to get everyone curious and asking questions, I think that we have an opportunity here. I heard this little parable. It was the CEO and the CFO were having a conversation in this business, and the CFO says to the CEO, what happens if we give them all of this training and then they leave us? And the CEO says back to him, well, what happens if we don't and they stay?
Yeah.
So I just want to put that through the lens here is this the purpose of this isn't to hold people back from their journey or to invest things into empty vessels or consider our people as vessels. And I'm sorry, Scott, that might sound a little bit, on the financial side, but here's the point is that everyone has a cup that can be filled with more. And the purpose of learning and growing is that statement right there, is that we're looking to help our organization to learn how to be lifelong learners and to improve ourselves to because there's no cap on our journey, period, the end. There's more we can do, more we can learn, more we can become for others. There's always more and more opportunity for us. And by encouraging us to learn that tool of becoming self-directed lifelong learners is I wish I'd written that statement, but that comes directly from Ted, is that this is the organization that we want to create. And I think that that's the point here, is to help us to get on that journey.
Yeah, and so you guys, some of you know, and if you don't, you'll now know, I just love studying Walt Disney, okay, Walt. So I remember, and Kyle may remember, I don't know, he was the only one in the room when I did this, but it was probably about the third or fourth week after I started with SMART. And I brought to the group, I said, the very same thing. I love Walt Disney. I love what he did for that company. He was such an innovator. They started a program called called Disney U. Okay. And it was to help people when they came into the Disney Corporation to go through a program to help them learn and grow. And I remember bringing that to the group again about the third or fourth week that I was with the company, and it started. We started it, and it was just, it kind of started off in different fashions, and it's completely, kind of different from where we started off a number of years ago. But this is what Disney or Smart University is about, is our progression, is making sure that we have a training ground for people. And it can expand into our clients, which we have done. It can expand into our candidates, which we have done. and there's a tremendous amount of opportunity. But first and foremost, it's to make sure that our people have the training, the resources, the material, all of that. So it's really exciting to see Smart University. I love that we're doing this and that we're, you know, actually meeting just like we are today. So, okay, and this is out of the book as well. Let's read letter D. John, can I get you to read that for us?
Sure. D, 2 paths to grow, hero path and coach's path. Climbing the corporate ladder can be frustrating and discouraging. It can eventually promote you into incompetence. The hero's path allows you to grow and be rewarded financially using your strengths and talents without having to leave your ideal role. For those wanting to try a different path, there is the coach's path, helping you manage your teams correctly.
Yeah, so there are some different paths, and we're going to get into that later on in the program. But I think that, again, you've heard it a few times already. There's the hero's path and there's the coach's path. Why on earth would we want to take a Michael Jordan and make him a coach when his path is the hero's path? You know, now he did that, and you know, it didn't work out well, and he's not a coach today. Okay, but he, you know, to me, he's still one of the greatest basketball players ever to live. And why would you just go, hey, you know, you're at the top of your game, let's pull you out and make you a coach? You know, and some people don't want to be coaches, they don't want to manage teams, but they want a path to progression to do the things that they love doing. That's what this is about. Okay, so good, thank you. Number 3, mechanism number 3, freedom and responsibility. Let's have Maddie. Well, just read, these aren't quite as big. Will you just read all of the letters for us?
Yeah. No PTO accrual or limit. See PTO in employee handbook.
Okay, so sorry, stop.
Okay.
No PTO. So sometimes we say that, people go, what? There's no paid time off? Okay, no, there's no accrual or limit. There's no PTO accrual or limit. Do you guys realize, like, we're one of the few companies on earth that really kind of do this? Okay, sorry, go ahead.
We are responsible to do what we say we are going to do. We are responsible for accomplishing our work and producing results. We have freedom to take vacation time. We have flexibility in how and when we work and how we achieve results. We trust each other, we are accountable to each other, and we have each other's back. We are good stewards of the business. Okay,
so any comments on that piece? Again, we didn't always do this. I remember many discussions over the period of time, and Kyle, being the HR director, informed us, you know, these are our, this is how much we accrue, this is how much we take off, and we changed it. We changed it completely to why do we do that? So before we answer that question, Joe, you had your hand up.
Yeah, it says this is tricky because there's certain things that our business needs, right? So it's like, John, you can't be a on-site manager without being on site, right? So there's some extra factors that go along with this, and purposefully trying not to spell those things out. Freedom and responsibility is a pair, right? It has the freedom to be able to make good choices, but the responsibility to make the right choices for the business. And so it's not a free-for-all. It is asking each one of us and offering each one of our team members to have both the freedom to be able to make important decisions that is respectively to their position, while also understanding what is the business need, and that we have very clear expectations and responsibilities that go along with those positions. And you can't be an on-site manager not being on site. So how does all of this balance? There's also other issues. It says, well, we have no PTO accrual or limit. That doesn't mean that you can call out every day. That's leaving out the responsibility piece to it, right? And so this is our job as managers, and we're handing kind of the reins to you as the managers to determine what does that mean for your business. Because if someone is missing a lot of work, are they really helping you keep keep their piece of responsibility to their position? And just because that's the case, we can't really put under there, well, we have this PTO policy and now you have this amount of points and now you've hit your points and it's time to be dismissed. We're trying to go away from a system like that and trying to go to a system that says we hold our people accountable. And how we do that is through the managers, not through some policy. So.
Yeah, Techie.
Yeah, added to what Joe was saying, that I really love that last part about accountability. When you have this sort of freedom, it inspires two things. Is one, high accountability, and then with that, high performance. And the only way to really achieve high performance and perform well is to have the freedom, not by policy, but by the culture we build and by our managers as well, to really execute and perform well. And I believe this is all also related. I don't mean to bring up church, but it's like something, a scripture I grew up with was was Doctrine and Covenants. He that is commanded and compelled in all things, the same servant is slothful and unwise. And I feel that way when it comes to policies and whatnot. Is when you're kind of restricted on how you're going to perform your work, that person can become lazy, can try to figure ways around the game. But with this culture that we build, is it's built for high performers and people who are okay with high accountability at the same time. And so with this, it's almost in a way a testing ground. Is I feel like those who perform at a high level will stick around because we have this much freedom, and those who don't perform at a high level because we're working with great managers and we have a high accountability at the same time, will not stick around. And so it will instill within us a very high performing culture at the end. So,
and I think there's one piece missing, and this was the question I was going to throw out there. Why are we allowing this to happen? Why do we allow no PTO accrual? And why do we allow this type of thing to happen? So I think there is high accountability. We do have high performers, but I think the biggest thing is we trust you. I think trust is the huge part. If we don't trust you, we're not going to have a program like this. Trust is extremely important in this process. And so and the other part is, are you performing? Are you producing results? And if you produce results, then you have even more trust, and you're able to understand when and how you can use this program. Kyle, you had a question, comment?
Yeah, you kind of said what what I'm about to say. Trust. I really think this is for a mature, trustworthy group. And that's what we're striving to have. They're probably, I'm sure of it. I'm sure there has been abuses of this in throughout our time doing this. And we will catch on to that. But ultimately, we want to attract and retain a very responsible and mature, high-performing group. And the way to do that is to set the policies and set the circumstances up to attract and retain that type of a group. And it'll take some time to fully get there, but that's one of the main reasons for setting up a non-policy, so to speak, for that.
Yeah. Yes. Shane.
I love that Kyle said that. How many clients do we talk to that have a points program, and how many employees toe the line? Right? They might be able to accrue 5 points and they sit at 4 3/4 because they have the time. And then all of a sudden they actually have a true emergency. They have a true sickness. They have something. And then they're pissed because they get let go because they went over their points, right? And so, what I say this all the time, and it sounds like a stupid Spider-Man reference, but it's, with great freedom comes great responsibility, right? And
Thanks,
to be able
Uncle
to
Ben.
have this is to be very self-managed, to know that, yes, I have that freedom and I don't want to screw it up. And when it comes down to it, when companies have a policy like this, the individuals that do take advantage of it weed themselves out, because the rest of us don't want to lose that perk, right? That benefit of being able to have that freedom. Because we have to ask ourselves, right? Do you work to live or do you live to work? And it's very different. And if you've ever been part of a generations training, and that would be a really cool training that we should put in place, Carrie, is a generations training to better kind of understand the different generations and what their thoughts and opinions and passions are.
Yeah.
But, for myself, I work to live. I love what I do, but I do it for my family. I do it so I can go on vacation, so I can spend time with them.
Yeah. No, that's good. Thank you. And we'll take a look at that. I think that's a great putting that in there, because we do have different generations. That we got me, who's old, and some of you who are very young. Okay. So there are different characteristics within all those generations. And I think it's important to take a look at that. So, okay. Let's go through one more. And I'm going to have Jason read number 4, which is candor.
Do you want me to do A or all of them?
Do all of them, please.
Okay. Constructive confrontation. Do not make a decision unless you have disagreement. Peter Drucker. As an X Factor team member, you only have the opportunity to engage in productive dialogue, but you also have the responsibility. See Dare to Lead. Constructive but direct feedback. See No Rules. How do we measure if we are following this and have sufficient candor? Stockdale paradox. Confront the brutal facts but never lose hope. Despite rigorous debate, once a decision is made, we quickly and unanimously get behind it and support all ideas and decisions as if they were our own. There is no water cooler talk or whispering offline. If we disagree with something or have a different opinion, we let it be known.
So all of those things are really important in our process of growth. And you'll learn more about the no feedback type of situation when we get into the rules. First, break all the rules. You'll understand what that means. Right now, I'm not going to explain it, but it's an important look at how we do this, and it can change a little bit your mindset a little bit. Being able to, again, feel like you're being heard, feel like that you have opinions that can be expressed. And, one thing I learned about Ted, and I think all of us can learn this, is, he's made a lot of money and he's had all these businesses, and he's very, smart individual, but he always sits down with us and says, what are your ideas? What are your thoughts on this? And it's like, what, you want our thoughts? Like, all this. But no, he wants our thoughts, and we should be doing that. We should be able to ask those questions. And then when a decision is made, we make the decision and we move forward and we get on the wagon and we say, this is what we're doing. And sometimes we'll fail on that decision. That's okay. We'll correct and pivot and do what we need to do. But I think that this whole point, just making sure that, we do have an opportunity, and we can confront the brutal facts as in, and if you don't understand Stockdale paradox, not today, but at some point I'll probably have Kyle explain that, because that's a really good description. So it's just so important for us to have these discussions And we have had some interesting debates. But when we make a decision, we make a decision. Joe?
Yeah, I'll say this real quick. It's also our job as leaders to create safe places. And that can be a tricky thing because it's like, I need you guys to get on board with this. But I also need you to tell me if I'm screwing up. But then I need you to be on board after you told me I screwed up and I still decided that this is where we need to go. So how do you create that safe place? And that's through candor. And it's a tricky thing. So, and we know that there's no perfect answer to this. And let's be also honest, you're probably going to screw up a time or two.
Yeah.
I have plenty. I did just yesterday, by the way. It's like, oh, I need us to get on board with this, but at the same time, I need them to be on board with this, which means how do we create a safe place where they can disagree and maybe even build upon that momentum? And yet sometimes it can come off like, I really need you guys to just agree with me here and go with it. And so it's a tricky place to be able to figure these things. But I do think that it needs to be just as E is in there, right? As soon as we've made a decision that this is what we need to do and why, we've got to ask our people to get on board with that and follow that decision, get behind it and support it like it's their decision. Even if they didn't completely agree with it. Ideally, they've agreed with the why, but maybe not necessarily agreed completely with the what or the how.
Or the how. Yeah. Yeah. So it's interesting, and I'm going to pick on these two just for a short answer, both Joe and Belinda, because I've seen as you came into the company. Have either of you ever been candor with Ted?
I think Belinda more than me, by the way. So I'm just teasing. But no, not Belinda for sure. No.
Yeah. So both of you have had those opportunities. Have either of you been fired because you were candor with Ted?
I've worried about it a few times, but not yet. So
probably in the beginning, but I think that's the point is we can have frank discussions. And we don't have to be rude or mean or anything. I mean, that's not the point. We can have frank discussions and know that we're going to be heard. And then a decision is going to be made, but it's not going to be, you were making you challenged me, I'm firing you. It's never been that, and it shouldn't be with our people either.
Confidence is key in this too, though. It's having the confidence to know that, hey, I've got an idea, whether it's right or wrong, listen to the idea.
Yeah. And it goes back to Joe's comment of having a safe place. We got to have safe places for our people to have those discussions. So anyway, very good. We're going to end there. So next week, we're going to finish this document and we'll probably get into the one-page plan just to share it with you. Make sure everybody has it. We'll do that next week. The following week. So hang on just a second before we jump off here. Let me just. I want to pull this up real quick so we all. Whoops. Give me a second. This technology thing is so fun. Okay. So, again, we are on Smart Truth number 2 right now. We just finished up document number 4, or not finished, but we will finish next week. We'll talk a little bit about the one-page plan and strategy, which will give you some good information. Then we'll go in, so that'll be next week, and then the following week we'll go into Smart Truth number 3, which will be more on the Q12. Okay, and then Belinda. Smart Truth number 4 will be after that. So we're looking at 1, 2, at least 3 weeks before we get to Smart Truth number 4. But that kind of gives you an idea of where we're at. We're right here. These documents probably could have been, a full week or 2 truth themselves, but this is the whole piece. And then we start getting into the book the different books and different chapters from there. So, okay. Let's do one last thing, as we always do. Take just a few seconds, jot down an item or two or three of something that jumped out to you this week. What kind of, jumped in your mind and said, man, I love that. I think this is great, or I need to work on that. I need to be doing more of that. What is 1, 2, 3 things that you can look at and say, this is what I really learned from today, and this is how I'm going to take it next week and kind of work on it a little bit. So take just a second to ponder on that, jot something down. Okay, Techie, do you have one that you jotted down?
Yeah, one thing I jotted down was just the candor, how to build constructive feedback and, build a culture of openness where you can get buy-in from your team members, and then ensuring that you have a safe place for them to bring things to you and be constructive with that. So
good. Arturo, what about you?
Still thinking about it right now. It's very hard.
Okay, go ahead. That's fine. Ashley Hosang.
Yes, the one that jumped out of me this week was mechanism number 3, freedom and responsibility. And this one is my favorite, since I know and I love working for a company and a team that trusts me and that does not micromanage me. That, for me, that is one of the biggest failures of most of the companies in the world.
Yeah. Shantae, what about you?
Yeah, I kind of wrote something similar to what Ashley just stated. I just wrote empowerment equals trust. And when people feel empowered, they feel trusted, and then responsibility immediately shifts.
Okay, good. Very good, you guys. That's great. So here's an assignment for you this week. It's not too hard, but it's going to take some thinking. I want you to think about the hero's path and the coach's path. And I want you to think about what that means on both of those. What does that mean that we have a hero's path? What does it mean to not climb the corporate ladder? Because we've all been taught to do that. So I want you to think about that in respect to yourself, in regards to yourself. What does that mean to you? And, I'm not going to necessarily drag out of anybody specifically, but, which path are you wanting to take and why? And are there others in your team that you could say, gosh, they would be so good at just being in the hero's path? What does that mean? So I want you to think about that. Hero's path, coach's path. What does that mean to you? Where do you fit in those pieces? Okay. All right. So thank you so much for your comments. I thought we had a great discussion. We will send out a new survey. We're going to change things a little bit. We'll have you grade things a little bit differently, so we get a little more meat on the bones when it comes to the survey. So just kind of be watching for that. And I will post the recording again for anybody who wants to rewatch it. For those that are not here today, we have a few. And again, have a great weekend. It's an Easter weekend for those of you who celebrate that. Enjoy your weekend, and we look forward to talking to everybody next week. So we'll finish off this document next week. That's what we need to kind of look at the rest of it, and we'll have a good discussion on the rest of it next week. All right? Take care, everybody. You guys have a good day.
Thanks, Gary.
Bye. Thank
Okay,
you.
Scary.
bye-bye.
Bye. Have a good one.